this is a bowl demo. I like to use about 2 to 2.5 pounds of clay for a nice sized bowl. So for bowls, I usually do a wider, shallower tuna can shape. Because my bowl is going to be a little bit wider and shallower than a mug. So that's the first difference between a bowl and a mug. The second one is how I open it. So I usually start with a sponge and pressing through that with a few fingers. That helps give me like a nice rounded interior to my bowl. You kind of have to be careful not to go too shallow though. That's been kind of an issue for some people because you don't have that direct touch with your finger. So just be careful not to go too far when you're opening. I don't know, I might want to work a little of this clay back down to make it a little thicker. Okay. And then as you're opening, you want to open with a nice curve on the inside. So I just kind of pull out, trying to maintain the curve that I have, that I've created with the sponge. And then just make sure that you're opening it wide enough. If you open it really narrow, you're going to have a tall, narrow bowl. So I open it pretty as wide as I want it to be when I make the bowl. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and compress with my sponge, just following that curve up the side 5 or 6 times. And then I'm going to compress this edge in with the rest of the clay. Alright, then just a little bit of water on the inside. As I bring up the walls, I'm going to follow the curve with my inside fingers so I maintain that curve on the inside. And it is kind of bulgy here, so rather than squeezing in the bulge and going towards the center, I'm just going to kind of squeeze it in and go straight up just to even out the walls a little bit. And I'm trying to keep that curve on the inside. Okay. And then don't stop here. Like you might think, okay, I made a bowl, but like it's super thick down here. There's still a lot of clay that you can bring up. So push in. I'm doing like kind of a counter push from the inside to keep it open. So push in, get your ledge of clay, and then lift that thicker clay up into your bowl. I'm still mostly coming straight up, pressing the top with each pull. And I'm also not letting this top edge get too thick because it's eventually going to stretch out and when I shape it. Okay, so 1 or 2 more pulls here, following the curve on the inside, not letting that top edge get too thin. But also I am letting the base here stay a little thicker to support the walls when I bring them out. So don't worry about trying to bring up too much clay. With that last pull, it was kind of a shaping pull. I let it go out a little bit. Okay, so cleaning out the water on the inside, I'm going to use the tip of my metal rib to clean up a little bit of this extra clay at the very base of my bowl. That's all I'm going to do about that extra clay down there because I want it to stay a little thicker. And then I'll use the angled edge of my wooden rib to shape. You could, if you don't want to do that. You could just use your fingers on the inside and push towards your sponge on the outside to round it out, to open it. Or you could use the metal rib on the outside for shaping. Or if you want to be brave, I like to use the angled edge of my wooden rib and kind of right, not a little bit above center is where it's going to touch my bowl, just on the inside top, and then I'm just slowly, gently working it down, and then stopping before the tip goes down into the base. I'm going to go ahead and compress this edge again. Got some wet clay up there. Okay, and then I'll just repeat. And you can make your bowls however wide you want them to be. Also, the lip doesn't have to look like this. This is just how I do it. You could round the whole thing if you want it to be round.